But all of this, what I'm getting at, is it requires a very different relationship to our work. It means that we can no longer just rely on being good at executing the tasks, in being good at building the deck or writing the process or setting up the project. It requires now for us to understand the value sitting around those tasks, the thinking, the judgment, the relational intelligence, the perspective, really the overall orchestration. It's kind of like you are the composer and the work is your symphony. The people playing the instruments, that's the AI. Work as we know it has changed. I don't feel like that is a big new thing to be saying. Many of us, most of us fundamentally understand that AI has completely reshaped, restructured, reimagined work. What I want to talk to you about in this episode is how we need to reshape, restructure, restory, reorient ourselves, reimagine ourselves in the professional sense to meet this moment. So what I'm sensing, and you may be as well, is there is this kind of quite persistent low-grade anxiety around the future of work. And this is whether you are employed by an organization or whether you are self-employed or have a business or a brand. We all know that nothing is ever going to be the same again, but we can't yet articulate what it is that's going to be changing exactly. And again, what's required of us. I feel like there's kind of two camps, maybe there's three camps, but there's two quite definitive camps I'm seeing. You are either head buried in the sand, rejecting the idea of AI, making it extremely wrong, sort of advocating for all the reasons why it shouldn't be used. There is this kind of sense of fear. There's a threat that's causing you to put a stake in the ground that says, no, I won't participate. So there's that kind of camp that feels quite defined to me in my world and work and who I'm interacting with. And then there is this kind of more, we could call it, is it positive? It's certainly high-minded, but not in the elitist sense of like, oh, we're just taking the higher road. There does seem to be a camp of people, I'd put myself in this camp, where we're more buoyed and excited and, optimistic about the future of work. We're deeply engaged in the technology. We're collaborating with these new tools. We're spending a portion of most days now investigating new ways to be using this, what I would normally call emergent technology, but really AI is over 70 years old. It's just the generative AI, conversational AI. That's the thing that's had the big kind of leap and evolution in the last 18 months. So it's more our use of AI, not the fact that AI itself is new. But we are regularly, consistently, and I would say on an almost daily basis, exploring new ways to integrate AI into our workflow, into our businesses, into our roles. Maybe that camp in the middle is a little bit of corporate denial as well, where you might be inside an organization that hasn't yet figured out their AI adoption or integration plan. And so there's this kind of mandate not to use it or to be really transparent when you do. There's still this sense, I think, in that middle ground that using AI is cheating somehow. And I think in some instances, in a lot of instances actually, it is. But part of how I teach AI, how I think about AI, is it being more of a collaboration partner, a thinking partner, than it is something that causes cognitive debt or does your work for you, or you leave it to kind of take care of the parts of your role that you used to do and you just kind of sit back and relax. No, that is not what I'm advocating for. That is not what I teach. But maybe that is that kind of middle ground of there is that sort of wedge in the middle that is corporate organizations, medium to large organizations that aren't yet ready with their AI adoption and integration plan, denying the use of or making the use of wrong before the kind of framework is laid down. So you're wanting to kind of use it and integrate it and explore it, but you don't fully feel like you have permission Maybe that's a middle ground. But anyway, I don't want to talk to you today about the fact that it's happening. I was talking about that 12 months ago. We now know it is happening. What I want to talk to you about is, in what ways do we need to change to meet this moment? In what ways do we need to see ourselves, speak about ourselves, articulate ourselves within a professional setting based on the change that is here? One thing I personally love to remember and remind myself about AI, and that I think that if you have AI naysayers or rejectionists in your orbit at the moment, is the AI, any software program tool that you're using today is literally the worst it's ever going to be. And it's not enough anymore to say, well, I tried that image generator a month ago and it was really bad, or, I used ChatGPT last year and I tried to do some stuff and it just gave me this really generic, advice or response or piece of work. It's no longer enough to have that point of view, because the technology, these models are advancing at such incredible speeds that it's really more week to week now. So the ways that you might be engaging with Claude last week, Claude's on an absolute tear, will be different to the ways that you're engaging with and the output that you're receiving from Claude this week. So I wanted to kind of put that down as well. If you have those people in your life, or maybe you're one of those people who's like, oh, I tried it and it's shit and, it's just slop. That word, we keep using the word slop in relationship with AI. I feel like there's a gentle invitation to let that story go and really just start re-engaging and becoming more optimistic, because I don't see how or why a pessimistic or negative or naysayer mindset is going to help you in the future as it relates to your professional self, work, abundance, money, your definition of success. I do think 18 months ago, it was kind of acceptable, maybe kind of interesting to take that point of view and to kind of challenge AI. But we're just much further ahead now with our articulation of ethical use of AI, all the ways that we're able to see AI as a thinking partner and a collaborator, as a producer of value versus a composer of value, which is something I might talk about today, but not anymore. So anyway, I wanted to give you that. Take it or leave it. It's totally up to you, but I wanted to make sure that I said it. So we know that the future of work is AI abundant, is AI integrated, is AI powered, assisted, this agentic economy. In what ways do we need to evolve and change as professionals to meet this moment? I actually just mentioned it and I may as well talk about it straight up. The biggest fundamental mindset change that we each need to have is that as humans who see, smell, empathize, touch, feel, all of the, how many senses is there? All of the senses. As humans, our role increasingly is to compose value, not to produce value. So we know the producing value really well. We were hired to do a particular role that had a particular set of key responsibilities. We had a job description, and how we spent most of our time was producing value. We wrote the deck. We built the deck. We analyzed and synthesized information. We generated great ideas. We conceived, cognized, documented the process. We set deadlines. We put teams together. We edited. We refined. We polished. We managed all communication. And now, most of that, of what I just described, will be taken care of by AI. And not perfectly, not completely independently, but for the most part, taken care of by AI. What this means, of course, is your business or the business that you work for requires organizations to rethink the roles that they need humans for versus the roles that they need AI assistants or employees for. We're really going to start to see your own business or the business that you work for is going to have an AI workforce, and a human workforce. And it will be the human workforce that is composing value with the intelligence. That is the big role for us. That is the big mindset shift that we need to move into, is seeing ourselves again as that composer of value, not that producer of value, and not getting scared that there isn't enough composition-based roles, because it's only going to increase our output, our impact. Businesses will scale more quickly, but the rules around scale are also changing. The metrics of success are changing. That's a kind of whole other conversation. But this is the big fundamental self-perception and mindset shift, is I am now a composer of value, not a producer of value. And that's going to be the shape of my work: to direct, to relate, to discern, to decide, to care, to criticize. Any other C's that I can come up with? But all of this, what I'm getting at, is it requires a very different relationship to our work. It means that we can no longer just rely on being good at executing the task, in being good at building the deck or writing the process or setting up the project. It requires now for us to understand the value sitting around those tasks, the thinking, the judgment, the relational intelligence, the perspective, really the overall orchestration. It's kind of like you are the composer and the work is your symphony. The people playing the instruments, that's the AI. This is why I'm coming to this point of everybody needing to see themselves as an entrepreneur. If you're in your own business, you probably already do. But if you're working for somebody else, beginning to see yourself as almost like a small business within the larger business. And that's because entrepreneurs have always had to think the way that everybody now has to think, which is, what is the real value here of me doing this task at this time for my business? Can any part of this be automated or systemized in some way? What aspects of what I'm doing need to remain deeply human? What am I actually solving for right now in this work that I'm doing? And then I think on more of a service business level, what do people actually come to me for? What do people trust me for? What do people know me for? What have people come to expect from me and of me? So these are no longer a set of questions for founders, entrepreneurs, and business owners. These are questions for everyone. So that's the first big mental shift, is whether I have my own business, ambition to start my own business, or I'm going to stay employed in somebody else's business, I need to start thinking of myself as a composer of value versus a producer of value. The second mindset shift, the thing that we need to be thinking about moving towards adopting in the age of AI, is we can no longer see ourselves as these like holders of jobs and titles. And instead, we need to see ourselves as these keepers, cognizers of value. From that kind of job holder mindset, the way we think about ourselves is, I occupy this role, I perform these tasks in this role, I have this particular job title that sits on my email signature, and I belong to this function of the business. But the mindset shift for a holder of value or a value holder, a composer of value, is, what do I know? What can I see that only I can see based on my energy, my gifts, my skills, my professional experience, my depth, my capacity for empathy, my knowledge of the client or how this work has been done before? What can only I see? What am I trusted for? What is the kind of transformation or result that I as an individual can help to create? And then just this fundamental inner knowing of, this is how I contribute. This is how I carry the outcome, whether that's in my own business or somebody else's. So I wanted to talk to you about this because titles are going to become less and less important, common, required, and also kind of less protected. If you really think about it, a title only makes sense and has meaning inside a particular system. So that title relies on that system or that structure staying preserved exactly in place as it is. The title depends on the company continuing to see the value in that role staying in place. But your value being the melting pot, the very individual, unique melting pot of your skills, your gifts, your energy, your perspective, your professional experience, your personal experience, your life experience, your relational intelligence. This is something I want you to start to be thinking about and talking about and researching and investigating. Relational intelligence, your taste, your judgment, your opinion, your informed opinion, all of that can travel. So as the organization continues to change shape, as the structure of that organization continues to change shape, you as this individual unit of value can travel and move with those structural changes that are going to continue taking place forever, for at least the next 10 years. So it's scary because we've always claimed that title. We've always needed that title. We've always loved seeing what the email signature says and where we kind of sit in the org chart and how much control we have or power we have or when the next promotion is coming. We've always viewed that through the lens of title. But the big shift is that we're now viewing that through the lens of value. In this AI-shaped economy, in this agentic economy that has already emerged and is only going to now grow, the people who see themselves as value holders, composers of value, are going to be the ones that experience more stability. Some more questions, and I'm going to keep throwing questions because me giving you questions to self-reflect on, questions is an entry point to self-discovery. This is the time that we're in. I don't want you looking to big tech or even your own organization, or if you're a business owner, there's things that you're just going to need to fundamentally know. There's questions that you're going to need to answer. And the way we answer these questions are the same way we answer them as entrepreneurs, founders, and business owners. So see how these worlds are now just colliding? All of the strategy that I take service founders through to bring through their own purpose-driven and profitable service business, all of that applies now to individuals inside larger organizations. What I predict happening, which is why I'm so excited about my Serve program and all the evolutions that are taking place within it, is my bet is the closer you come to being in contact with the unique ways in which you compose value, the more confident you're going to feel to actually go out on your own, potentially contract back to the business. A lot of organizations are going to be building a workforce that looks a lot more contract heavy versus full-time permanent employee heavy. So you might contract back to them as well as starting to pick up other contracts and consulting gigs. It kind of is more of this portfolio-based career that's had a lot of popularity in the last couple of years. But what I get excited about is the way that we come to answer these questions like, what do I uniquely bring here? What outcomes do I help to generate or create? What is my edge? What am I known for? How do I make myself not only legible, but to be seen as valuable beyond what I'm called or the service that somebody has invested in? All of these questions get answered through the same fundamental strategy. So I want you to start, if you are employed, I want you to start thinking about different avenues for self-development. I'm going to be introducing you or reintroducing you to Serve in the coming weeks. And the way I'm reimagining Serve is for it to become more of a living practice room for regenerative service-based entrepreneurship than a course taught live or static or otherwise. How do we continue to gather in community to put to work, to put into practice these principles of regenerative entrepreneurship and seeing ourselves more as service entrepreneurs and founders, whether we have our own business or not. It's all the same work, which again, I'm just really excited about. The big thing is that workplaces, the workforce is going to become more fluid, less defined, just kind of blurrier in general. And this is why it's going to be so important for us to feel self-defined within that, what might feel like a bit of a haze for at least a while. We're no longer waiting for the org chart or the manager or the CEO to tell us what we're called. We're showing the value that we uniquely compose, that we uniquely hold. So we are being more self-directed. We are more demonstrative of our value than waiting for somebody to say, this is what you're called, produce that value. So I hope you're feeling really excited by this, inspired by this, because I recognize that not everybody sees themselves as a founder. Not everybody wants to start their own business. What I'm trying and hoping I'm communicating really clearly is that we're going to be pretty choiceless in that. It's just how easeful could that transition of how we identify professionally be with this more optimistic mindset. And now to the emerging and even the established founders, especially of service businesses, the good, beautiful, expanding news for us is I fundamentally believe that having a service business, especially a human-centered, purpose-driven service business, is actually one of the safest professional moves or things you could do right now and in the coming years. In the past, we've thought about going out on our own as this big risk, a risk to finances, a risk to our livelihoods, our reputations. Those risks are now existing. They are present in traditional work. So we're starting to see a reduction of those stories that we tell ourselves that this is a risky thing to do, because I almost feel like now not doing it, or at least not exploring it, is actually riskier than exploring it, giving it a go, trying, leaping and seeing where you land. Because like I've just been saying, in this agentic economy, in the workforce and the workplaces that we're moving into now, every business is risky. Every employer, every boss is risky. So both pathways hold risk. What I'm always thinking about is which of those risk-full pathways are the most expanding, exciting, and evolutionary to me personally. It's kind of like a choose your own adventure. Both come with risks. Both are going to be hard. Both are going to be challenging. Both are going to be incredibly rewarding at a point, but it's just kind of a fork in the road. And I think where that road meets in the end is eventually, even again, if you are employed by an organization, you're going to be seen almost like a small business within that larger business anyway. So one of the fundamental reasons why I think starting, sustaining, or scaling your own service business is one of the safest things you can do right now is we understand that we're looking now for signs of life, proof of humanity. If you think about the state of social media, content at large, emails, LinkedIn, you name a platform that has content on it, it's going to be predominantly AI generated and driven content. It kind of already is, but that's only going to increase. What we're going to be looking for is each other. AI is going to be taking care of so much of that execution, that production of that value, the process. What's that going to leave us with? Each other, a desire for human contact, a felt experience, eye contact, context, empathy, all of these things that AI will never be able to be or do or take care of. So what we're going to be looking for is each other. We're going to want to work with each other. You will have agents, whether within the organization that you work for or within your own business, you will have your own AI workforce, but you're not going to be desiring working with your AI assistant. They're just going to be an assistant taking care of tasks. What you're going to be searching for is people to enjoy the process with, people to serve, people to help, people to give to. So I cannot stress this enough, how safe I believe it's going to be to start a service-based business that is human-centered, context-heavy and rich, narrative-led. All of the things that prove to us that I'm a human, that you are a human. It's the signs of life. What's going to become valuable is the stuff that can't be generated or automated. Our taste, our perspective, our lived in human experience, our discernment, our individual and unique way of relating, speaking, communicating, our inherent trustworthiness. Something that we're already beginning to see is this environment of low trust around AI, anything AI generated, anything that's been put together in collaboration with AI. There is this inherent sense of mistrust that it is not real, or that it's wrong, or that it's something to be critiqued or checked. That doesn't exist as much with the human-to-human engagement and experience. And then there's also our ability to guide and solve and support. Just don't underestimate how valuable supporting someone and receiving somebody's support is going to be. It's just a level of care that I think got pretty swept up and automated in the last 10 years. That high touch, very human, very person to person nature of work is going to have a resurgence. And I want you to remember that starting your own service business, or repositioning, reimagining your service business that you might have now, it doesn't require this huge leap immediately. It can start as an orientation, or if you have a business, a reorientation. It can start as a body of work that you start to serve into and develop. It can begin as a way of you understanding and then articulating your value. It can even be simply a set of relationships that you are tending to, nurturing and growing. So think of this more as the future that you're preparing for. It doesn't have to be this big thing now. It can just be the beginning of something starting to get together through you. That doesn't feel risky to me. That doesn't feel reckless to me. It feels wise. It feels intelligent. It feels informed. It feels like action we're taking in the direction of future alignment, future proofing. And I really think that this is the part I'm most passionate about. This is really what's driving and informing the reason I'm sitting down and talking about this, is you can start to become this person now. You can start to see yourself in this new light today. There can be decisions you make and action you take that meets this coming moment, this emerging moment now. It's not about quitting the job or burning the life down, or all of these really grand acts of change that we typically see and hear about in people's professional journeys. You don't have to suddenly view yourself as an entrepreneur or a business owner. It's just an inner acknowledgement. It's an interior experience that we're having where I understand where things are going. And now I'm going to start to point my action and my decisions, my curiosity in that direction. Who am I becoming? Who has already become that? And would I benefit from being in the same spaces and places of people who have journeyed to that becoming, who have moved through that mindset shift, who have transitioned from one professional reality to another? I guarantee you, the more you start to embody this, the more you start to believe this as a truth, either your own or at a collective level, the more you'll start to see yourself differently, you'll act differently, you'll operate differently. You will start to learn the language of value, of service and what it means to serve, especially within a regenerative business. You will start to become interested in things like positioning and offer structure and pricing. Marketing, you will pay closer attention to your existing relationships, also gaps in your network. You will just start to acknowledge likely what you would build if you stopped assuming that employment in somebody else's business was the only path. So really what we're doing here and what I'm encouraging you to do, again, whether you work for somebody else or you're within your own service business or even a product business that is becoming reimagined because of AI, so as a response to AI, we're just starting to create the internal and external conditions for that next professional season, for this next professional reality. We want to get steady. We don't want to feel scared. This is all about preparation, not panic. We're not out of time. Nothing's happening tomorrow, but we are starting to see that the speed of innovation, of evolution, especially of these larger models, it's fast. And so we just want to keep that in mind, that this isn't a 1 year later thing. This is a now thing. And what can we be doing now? What would we do differently? What decisions would we make that we probably ordinarily have shied away from or avoided to feel better supported and better prepared to meet this moment that is arguably already here, but that is going to feel even more real in the very near future. Everyone is going to need to take on the mindset of an entrepreneur. Everybody's going to need to see themselves as that individual unit and composer of value versus the producer of value. This will happen inside organizations as well as to ourselves in our own businesses. And I just think seeing this as preparation really, and so why not start thinking about it now? More self-aware, self-directed, relational, entrepreneurial, deeply human. I want to thank you for joining me for this episode. I am going to produce a companion essay on Substack, and you can start to feel the rhythm coming through now, podcast episode, and then a bit more of an unpack on Substack. So that'll be coming. And I'm going to stay on this topic of the future of work and service business for the next 4 to 5 weeks as a precursor to bringing you into an invitation season for Serve. What I want you to know about Serve before I go is what was once a 12-week program that I taught live has now evolved into what I'm calling a living practice room for regenerative business and service entrepreneurship, a place where we can be together always, all the time, a place that is always open and that you're always welcome. The program will be inside this room that's sitting within the Get Offline world. It comes with its own AI mentor, which is me, which is kind of a weird thing to say, but it is me. It's a sovereign, independent AI mentor. It's not a GPT sitting on ChatGPT. I've done that before. I've trialed that. Wonderful. The next evolution for me is to train my own AI mentor purely on my body of work, my teaching, my 1,000 bloody voice memos, my business program, my philosophy and methodology around a little rich life and a little rich service business, which is something sweet that's starting to come through. So it'll have an AI mentor inside. And then, of course, the big, shiny, important thing is community. So a big part of what you'll be getting by dwelling inside this room, gathering inside this room with me, is connection to other like-minded and adjacent service providers and entrepreneurs who are building in this more relational way. I'm changing the program to be less reliant on content marketing as a growth tool and bringing it deeper into human-centered business. So what does it mean for us to be more direct in our marketing, more community-led in our marketing? What does it look like for us to build consulting collectives and begin to work together, pitch for bigger jobs that more of us can hold? So I'm really excited about all the ways that marketing is going to deepen and just get more human focused in this world of algorithms and AI, where a lot of the content marketing piece is going to be taken care of, but also that we're already just seeing crazy mistrust, misinformation, and it's just kind of one dimensional. I don't think that's going away. So what do we need to do in response to that is market in more human-centered, compassionate, empathetic, loving ways. And I do believe I'm the right person to teach us that. So I'm excited about that. So all of that's coming. I'm spoiling it all at the moment, but I just wanted to let you know that that invitation is coming soon, and it's a space you're going to want to be in. It's beautiful to be in an offline space if you haven't been in one before. It's going to feel like a salve, like a balm, like a homecoming. It is the professional exhale. Should we do one now? I'll see you soon.